Hi, everyone. Welcome to Routine Reboot for the Mind and Body. My name is Amatullah Godiwala, and I will be your facilitator today. So, a little bit about me. I'm a psychologist, and I've completed my master's in clinical psychology. I work as a junior psychotherapist at Breakthrough Counselling. And before we begin, I just have a few general rules, which I'm also going to be putting on the screen. So, in unless you are prompted to unmute or unless you're prompted to speak, please mute your microphone. And if you have any questions, please send them in the chat below. Secondly, this is a safe space for everyone, so please be kind to each other. All right. So I will start now. Now, when you look at the topic, you think, okay, what is a routine? And why does it work? Why am I talking about a routine today? Just a second. Yeah. Yes. So let me give you a little bit of a context. Now, growing up, we've always heard that having a routine or a schedule is one of the best ways to live out your life. I mean, it makes sure that you are doing all your tasks. It makes sure that all of your aims are completed. And we see it every day. I mean, we see it on social media. We see, a lot of these, what I do in a day. This is my routine. I wake up at 6 a.m. I complete all of these different tasks. So that is what we've heard about routines growing up. Now, I will give you a little bit of a context and a little bit of history when it comes to routine. Okay. Now, fun fact, did you know that in several parts of the world, including in medieval England, people followed a habit of biphasic sleep? Now, biphasic sleep, right, like the name says, it means sleeping in two different chunks. Here, they would have their first sleep from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Then they would get up and they would start the watch. Now, again, considering that it's medieval England, sometimes it would mean that they would have a watch out in terms of danger and so on and so forth. Or they would finish all of their remaining tasks, that is, collecting firewoods, finishing up on their housework, and getting medicine and so on. Then they would fall asleep for the second time. Okay. That would be around 2 a.m. And then they would get up at around 6 a.m. or whatever their preferred timing was. Much like medieval England, different cultures have different routines. I mean, for those who follow Islam, one would be getting up at Fajr, that is at 5 a.m. Or for those who work on farms, it would mean getting up at a different time, maybe to feed the chickens, or maybe it's just to do any other farm related activity. The bottom line is the concept of a standardized routine is pretty new. I mean, getting up at 7 a.m., going to work, falling asleep at 11 p.m. is a very, very, very new concept. And one of the things that I have learned is that the era of industrial revolution is what brought this along. Because after industrial revolution, we had factories and offices, but before that, there wasn't ever a set routine. I mean, nobody lived the same life, right? Now, of course, a lot of us do have similar lives, and therefore having a routine that works for you is very beneficial. It helps us be less stressed, organize our tasks, and it mainly helps us feel like we have a lot of control over our lives. According to research, sustainable routines are linked to better health. I mean, it improves your sleep, it creates less conflict in your relationships, and so much more. And obviously, I mean, crossing things off your to-do list is so satisfying. I mean, making this workshop was on my to-do list. And when I finished it, it was so satisfying to make a giant line across it. The reason routines work is because of the constant positive reward and reinforcement one gets from it. Okay, so let me give you an example from my own routine. I make it a point to take 10 minutes out and quietly sip on some tea before I get to work. Those few minutes of drinking tea may seem really small and insignificant. I mean, okay, it's just tea, right? But I'm much more likely to start my morning meetings feeling much calmer, alert, and actually happy compared to days when I can't make time to drink my tea. And it's such a small step. We underestimate the importance of reinforcement in our lives. But we see it every day. I mean, isn't it satisfying to go and buy your favorite item from the shopping mall? Because shopping gives you positive feelings and it makes you want to do it even more and more. But while I'm talking about a routine, it's also very important to talk about some myths related to it. I mean, when I was researching this topic, the first thing I came across was something called the 5 a.m. club. Now, no offense, if you can get up and work at 5 a.m., respect for you, it's great. But forcing everybody to get up at 5 a.m. and putting these claims on social media, like, oh, if you don't wake up at 5 a.m., it means you're a failure, it means that you're lazy, it means that you just don't have enough drive, is a lie. Like I said, routines have been inherently different for everyone. Since the dawn of time, those who are more productive at night would take up tasks that require them to work at night, while those who work better in the morning would use it to their advantage. If I couldn't wake up at night, in the morning, really early, I wouldn't choose to be a farmer because I cannot imagine getting up at 4 a.m. and doing certain tasks. Being unable to follow a routine, more importantly, a routine that someone on social media claims is the most effective, and the only way to become a millionaire is a complete lie. In fact, what makes routines so difficult to follow is that they're very aspirational in nature. Now, what do I mean by aspirational? It means that you want to create a routine in such an unrealistic manner that when you're unable to achieve it, it makes you feel absolutely horrible. Now, I'll give you an example. Let's look at a very unrealistic schedule, okay? Now, this is my schedule: waking up at 5 a.m. and going to the gym, then come back from the gym at 8 a.m., have breakfast, prepare food, then after only an hour leave for work, work from 9:30 to 5, leave work at 5:30 a.m., clean the house at 6, cook food again at 8, 8:30 do laundry, 9 p.m. do more work, 10:30 work on my hobbies, 11:30 go do skincare, and 12:30 go to sleep. I mean, the most important part is I'm not even getting my 8 hours of sleep. I'm getting barely five. And secondly, this is a schedule that I made if I lived alone. We haven't even added responsibilities of those who are parents or those who live in joint families. If I was a parent, I would have so much more things to accomplish in a day. So, this is an entirely unrealistic schedule for me. And secondly, it's just so much tasks, so many tasks. If we were all the same and we could function in the same manner, we wouldn't be human. The difference in capacity of doing different number of tasks in a day doesn't make you a failure. If you're able to only cross off 6 things in a day, that's fine. But it's better to do those 6 things properly than to force yourself to do 12, right? This is seen in hustle culture, that is juggling 5 things at once and saying that those who can't do the same are just lazy. It's so baseless. I mean, we all work differently, but that doesn't mean your capacity is inherently wrong. Saying those who can't follow routines are not trying enough is not true because everyone simply has their own methods, right? Now, when I was thinking about creating this workshop, I thought to myself, what is the one important tool I require when it comes to creating a routine? And I thought it would be something physical, like making a to-do list or having some apps on my phone. But the most important tool for creating my routine is self-compassion. I mean, I have talked about how routines are such an important resource and how routines look different for everyone. But it also is important to consider your life circumstances. I mean, a student living alone in another city will have a completely different routine than a parent with two children. So when you're not able to follow the same structure every day, we often have this thought, I just have to be able to make sure that this one task is done. And if I can't do it, I'm so stupid. Or if I can't even do this, I can't do anything in my life. It becomes so easy to be frustrated with yourself. Comparison is such an easy trap to fall in, but a way to escape is to give yourself some space. I mean, self compassion is not a very easy thing to follow. I'll be honest. It's taken me a lot of time to be kind to myself, to be compassionate to myself. But if I stop being so tough on myself, I give myself a little bit of a breathing space to actually live my life. Giving yourself the freedom to mess up, the freedom to fail, and ultimately the freedom to not be rigid with yourself is so important. I get it. It's frustrating when things don't go your way. But just because something hasn't happened in this moment doesn't mean it will never happen again, right? I mean, while I was making this PPT, I wasn't able to find a template. It took me so long. And I was frustrated because I have done this before. But that just because I'm not able to finish a task right now doesn't mean that I am inherently incapable of doing something. This concept that we have, that we hear from everyone, that if you mess up once in your life, it's going to follow you around everywhere, is so untrue. I mean, we see it everywhere, right? Or if I don't wake up and I don't do yoga at 5 a.m. every single day, it means that I don't have discipline, or I don't have enough motivation to do anything. So it ends up becoming so damaging. It ends up creating such unrealistic expectations, and you trap yourself in such a box that it becomes impossible to escape. While I talk about self compassion, it's also important to understand that routines don't work for everyone. And that is completely okay. I mean, the reality is that not everyone can have a homogeneous routine. Not everyone can have a set schedule or follow the same things every day, do the same thing at the same time. For some, this gets way too boring and way too monotonous. And doing the same thing every day and associating a time with it. Like, for example, if I said 5 a.m. yoga, I will start becoming anxious from 4:30 onwards that if I don't do my 5 a.m. yoga, it means that I'm a failure. So you see how sometimes routines are counterintuitive. It might lead you to have even more anxiety. For some people, routine is just not comfortable. I mean, if you have ADHD, you may struggle with following a routine because of its rigidity, and you may just not be able to have a set routine. I mean, for individuals with ADHD, individuals with depression, individuals with anxiety, or even physical problems, a lot of times your routine will not be possible because you just don't have the energy to do something. So, like, and remember how I mentioned that because of the modern era, eh, before the modern era, in fact, nobody had the same routine because nobody had the same life. I mean, till some extent, this still applies now. If your lifestyle is different from the typical 9 to 5 job, say you work in freelance, or you're a doctor, or you're a nurse, you work in any healthcare, or you're a teacher on summer vacation, your routine will look so different from the average corporate employee, and your bandwidth may be different too. So it's okay if the typical daily routine doesn't work for you, but that is also that can also be your advantage, right? Stepping away from your routine once in a while can be so beneficial for those who may have mental health issues. And it takes away the stress of doing something. It may be beneficial to those who just don't have the mental capacity for any structure. And hence, that's why I say it's okay if routines don't work for you. It's completely all right. One very interesting factor that I did come across when I was searching for this workshop is how much I underestimate the importance of sleep in my life. I mean, we know 8 hours of sleep is very important. We know that the diet that you follow can have such a big impact on your mood, on your feeling, on your productivity, and your overall health. They say, right, we are what we eat, and that has a direct impact on our life. Now, I understand our hectic schedules make it really difficult to incorporate as many balanced meals into our days. But that has such a big impact on your bodily health, your energy levels, mental satisfaction, and most importantly, it fuels our body to be able to do the things that we love. I mean, I'm sure we all have our favorite hobbies, right? I personally like singing. If I am so tired and if I don't eat well, my throat dries up and my voice becomes really hoarse. So I can't even do my favorite activity. I can't do my favorite hobby because then that becomes stressful for me. But sleep and food is something that we understand is very important. An incredibly key element to our routine building is hydration. I mean, we all know water is a life source. We need it to survive. But according to the studies that have been done, a lot of people in the world are dehydrated and they don't even know. I mean, we don't really think too much about drinking water, right? I mean, I drink 2 cups of coffee a day, so there must be some water in that. A lot of us are dehydrated, and recently the heat waves in India are making it so much worse. Water has been linked to the production of serotonin in our brain. Serotonin is the happy hormone. It's been found that increasing our water impact intake has a direct impact on our mood and has also been found to reduce levels of depression and anxiety. I mean, it not only does water affect your mood, it also affects your ability to concentrate on things and your brain functioning. Drinking less water leads to cognitive difficulties such as lesser concentration, memory issues, and can also lead to brain fog. Now, I'm sure we've all experienced this. We sit down to do a task, okay? Your brain is just not working. You're reading a document or you're reading some really important mail, and you just find yourself reading the same line over and over and over again. That is brain fog. And nothing makes sense when you're in this stage. Hence, being hydrated leads to so much better decision making skills, and involving this element of hydration and diet in a routine is so important. I mean, I have an entire 1.5 liter bottle next to me ever since I started learning about this. And I make sure to track my water in a way. I can't do I personally cannot deal with tracking apps that track how many glasses of water you drink because I don't count my water in that way. But I do make sure I have a really pretty bottle next to me so that I feel motivated to drink more water. Sleep, hydration, and nutrition are the most basic building blocks to a healthy routine. If you find yourself struggling with any of these, I recommend focusing on one of these elements first. So if you might be trying to read the newspaper every morning before you're going to work, but it's not going to be very useful or sustainable if you've been sleeping 4 hours a day and skipping breakfast, right? So you start with one. Okay, maybe you try improving your sleeping routine. Or maybe you try understanding that, okay, if I can't get enough sleep, I will shift the time I read my newspaper. In the same way, if I have trouble eating well, I will focus on that. I will try incorporating things that make sure it might be exchanging a snack or a chocolate for a banana. Small impact, small decision, but really, really, really large impact. Now, I've talked so much about what a routine is, what the history is, how all of this is so new for us, and how important water is for us. But how do we actually create a schedule that fits us? So, like I said, self compassion is the most important tool for creating a good routine. It makes you feel good, it makes you more realistic, and it also accounts for kindness. I mean, we can, honestly, I can create as many aspirational routines as I want. But the truth is, I won't ever be able to do it. Now, I can acknowledge that there are some people who manage to do it. But if you follow the same rigorous schedule every single day without giving any form of break to yourself, you will be burnt out. Taking into account your physical and mental health is the most important aspect of any schedule. I mean, let's be realistic. Life is tough. And oftentimes, problems hit us out of nowhere. You might end up being sick, you might end up having a bad mental health day, or someone close to you could end up experiencing these things. Hence, having a rigid routine with no room for error can cause so much anxiety. I mean, it doesn't let you have the opportunity to go out with people or even for impromptu plans. Another way that I really try to help and create a more realistic schedule for myself is to make my routine into a ritual. I mean, like we said in the morning, in the start, right? What is something that you have that you do out of habit? That is your ritual. I heard some of the answers were yoga, some said drinking coffee or drinking something else. When you create a ritual out of what you like, it makes it more fun and you actually start looking forward to it. Now, I will spill a little bit of a secret about myself, okay? I cannot for the life of me get up and brush my teeth in the morning. I get so lazy. And on after that, doing my skincare, I get even lazier. I understand how important sunscreen is, but it's so boring. I have to do it, and I have to do it for the sake of my health. So, in order to make it more fun, I make it a ritual. I have this playlist that I play, and I have this certain podcast if I don't feel like music. And I do those activities along with whatever is playing. It's my personal time. It helps me finish the task, and it's also fun. In the same way, some people make a ritual out of making coffee, working out, cooking food, cleaning the house, and so on. Make your ritual and make it fun while also giving you a room for error. Oftentimes, when my clients at Breakthrough struggle with creating a routine, the first rule that I give them is to have a failure ratio. Now, I've written a realistic metric to follow is a 70-30 ratio. 70% of the time, I will be successful. I will allow myself to be very rigid and actually follow my tasks. But 30% of the time, I give myself the little bit of a leeway to do it half-heartedly or to not do it at all. So if it's sort of like, okay, I brushed my teeth, but I don't feel like doing skincare, so I just won't do it. It gives me some space for change, but it also gives me some space to relax. Now, like I mentioned before, routines don't work for everyone, and that's okay. But when you're trying to make a routine and you find yourself continuously failing at it, it's a very difficult pill to swallow. It can be demotivating and it's honestly pretty sucky. But when it comes to following a routine and failing to follow it, it might actually not be a reflection of yourself. I mean, routines are made to work for you. You are not meant to work for a routine. So it can end up being a learning lesson. Routines are often a trial and error game. Some things will work immediately, while some things just won't stick. That does not mean it's your fault, but it just means that the method or the schedule didn't work for you. Now, if you're trying to follow a routine and you find that it just doesn't work, take a step back, understand and evaluate what went wrong. I mean, why were you unable to do something? Was it because you had too much to do in a day? Was it because you were not giving yourself enough time or enough rest in between? Or was it that there was just not enough time in the day? Something unexpected came in. So, taking a step back and evaluating what doesn't work for you helps you create a schedule that is fun and also makes you want to follow it. Now, I have a little activity for you guys. I am going to ask you to consider some points when you're making a routine. First, evaluate the kind of day you are having. Not like I said, right? Every one of us lives different lives. We don't have the same responsibilities, same life circumstances. But creating a schedule in such a way where you account for what kind of day you are having emotionally helps you create a much better routine. I mean, is it a hot day? Is it raining? Is it super cold? Do you feel tired? Do you feel energetic? And what task do you feel is going to be really hard to accomplish today? If I am making myself this activity and I'm evaluating, if I find that I'm really tired, then maybe making new food would be really tough for me. Then understanding that, okay, if I can't cook food, I might have some other backups. And this helps me create a much more realistic routine. Now, when it comes to accomplishing tasks, thinking about what you want to accomplish, having your goals in different categories is a very useful way to approach routine building. Now, I like to have my tasks divided by three categories, that is personal, work, and recreational. Personal can include your family time, it can include whatever you want to accomplish personally. Work can include any meetings you have or any project deadlines you may have. And recreational can be any activity that you enjoy. When you write and when you evaluate and divide your tasks in these three different sectors, it helps you account for everything. It helps you make sure that you're keeping your personal life and your recreational hobbies, and you're giving them enough importance as much as you may end up giving work. Keeping a maximum of three tasks in each category is a very useful way to start. And even from those three, you can keep some as optional. Now, putting the task on paper. Now, for some, I will preface this by saying for some, writing things down just doesn't work. And that's completely okay. You can have your own, you can have a Google Keep, you can have whatever method you want, but putting it somewhere else removes the routine from your mind and actually makes it a realistic schedule to follow. It can serve as a visual aid. I mean, like I said, whether it's a diary or it's using online tools. I know a lot of people who use something called Notion. Notion helps you track different things and it helps you visualize how your day is going to go. The act of completing a task and crossing it off the list works as the reinforcement that I was talking about earlier, right? It's so positive in nature. I get to cross my task off the list. I get to feel so good. I get to reward myself if I finish the task and if I finish it super early. Now, while creating this routine, it's okay and it's important to give yourself some time for a trial run. Try it out for a few days. See what needs to be changed, see what needs to be tweaked, and see how much space you have to account for any unexpected news, unexpected issues, unexpected family issues, or even some space to go out and some space for you to fail. Because, like I said, right, self compassion is the most important. Giving yourself a little bit of a leeway can do wonders for you. Now, like I mentioned, using external support, apps, or my favorite external support to use is my friends and also my mom or my family. I mean, it goes a long way, right? If I need a reminder for something and I cannot remember it or I don't want to put it down, I will ask my friend to remind me or I will ask my mom to remind me. Do you need reminders to go to bed on time? Ask your roommates or your spouse to gently encourage the habit. If you prefer, you could also use the digital wellness settings on your phone. I mean, it helps you limit your screen time, it helps you remind you that I know Instagram has this thing called quiet mode where it will start reminding you that, hey, I think you've used enough Instagram for the day. Maybe it's time to wind up. In the same way, phones tend to have this system. So it can help you remind you, it can help to remind you to do some journaling or some meditating or to anything. Now, I also have this other activity that I really like, that is crocheting. So I set myself some reminders to do crochet. I also recommend using the Headspace app. It's really, really awesome for beginner mindfulness activities. And it's a very, very calming resource to use. In the same way, you will find meditation audios on Spotify or on YouTube that you can use and use it as your own personal reinforcement, even if you don't want to use an external support. Now, one very important point that I did highlight is collaboration. I mean, humans are social animals. We've all heard that line. We've all heard it growing up. And we've also lived in a collaborative society for so long. This entire norm of doing things alone is so, so new. We've always heard, right? It takes a village to raise a child. Because we've been used to working and living together, giving tasks off to other people. So this entire isolating routine habit is pretty new. So using the help of your closest support can be a brilliant way to stay accountable. Most importantly, if you use the help of your closed ones, it gives you a different perspective. Oftentimes, we don't realize when we're being so harsh or if we're being very, very unrealistic to our own selves because we want to expect and we expect ourselves to be superhuman. That I am going to complete 25 tasks today. I'm going to have this super rigid routine. But oftentimes, running your routine by another person and taking in a different perspective helps you be kinder to yourself. Now, another thing that I really, really like to do is something called body doubling. I get very lazy doing tasks on my own. So sometimes it's just me and a friend. Either we're on video call or in real life. We both do a respective task by just being in the company of each other. In fact, there are resources online that help in body doubling. There are a lot of study groups online that help you do body doubling. Collaboration is a brilliant, brilliant way to complete your routine and also to be efficient. If you feel that there are some roadblocks that just don't seem solvable, reaching out to professionals is recommended. The reason I included this slide is because I used to believe that a lot of times, if I am not able to complete my to list, it's a sign of failure. But reaching out to professionals for help and asking that and telling them, okay, you know what, this is just not happening by me. It's a sign of courage because it means that you're able to acknowledge that something is not working out. And asking for help just means that you're looking for a solution for your problems. So reaching out to your family, admitting that, okay, you know what, I just can't seem to do this, is the biggest sign of respect to yourself. Now, thank you so much for listening to me. Um, you can check out our website and you can also please type in any questions that you may have. Our contact is below. And Pankasha, are there any questions or anything?
Yes, I can see a lot of questions on the chat. Uh,
Yes.
could you see some? Like, did you see the
Wait,
message?
I have stopped sharing. I'll just open the chat box. Okay.
Yeah, so I see one from Krishna. I think you answered it, but maybe I'll read it out to you again.
Yes.
I'm currently working in a
Mhm.
corporate as an inside sales executive. So I have a very hectic schedule. I wake up at 8, take a bath, freshen up, and then I reach office with all of the stress.
Mhm.
Um, I come back home and I have food and I sleep and sleep. Nothing. How can I improve? Is the question.
So when it comes to, it sounds like you have a very hectic schedule in the first place. I mean, you are already working in sales. I understand that's a very, very difficult task. And when it comes to creating your schedule, understanding one of the things I always like to say is you need to leave and work as many hours are only required. When it comes to the stress from office, I used to work in a hospital before, and I had this policy that the moment I step out of the hospital, these problems are not my problems. So when I come home, I would give myself a little bit of space. I would tell the people around me, okay, please do not talk to me for half an hour. And I would give myself only me time. Having, I would just do anything. For that half an hour, I would listen to music. So you see, it's such a small amount of time that you're giving to yourself that it can help you be a little bit less stressed. Does that answer your question, Krishna?
Okay. Yeah, I think.
Yes.
Yeah. Then there are two questions on the Q&A, which are more or less about social media. Okay, how much does social
Mhm.
media shape our perception of ourselves or reality? And is self-regulation of
Yes.
the same helpful?
Yes. So social media, I am of this belief that we are not meant to have this much content constantly thrown at our face. If you open an app and if you just type productivity on Instagram or YouTube, you will see so many different schedules and you will see so many people preaching that their schedule is the best. That if you don't wake up at 5 a.m. and you don't complete all of your work by 9 o'clock, you're a failure. Or you will see professionals who maybe don't even have the same job as you doing that. Like I said in the start, every one of us is inherently different. So regulating the content that you see, if you see that watching a lot of productivity content is not helping you, blocking out those keywords from your social media can be very, very helpful. Blocking out certain content, you see a reel you don't like, hiding it is incredibly important because then the algorithm gets, okay, you don't want to see this content. In fact, reducing your overall social media is the best idea. I have a timer on my Instagram. I can only use it for 2 hours a day because I understand that watching so much makes me question my own self then that, oh, why can't I do this? So inherently, there is nothing wrong with you if you can't follow what's on social media. But we are also not meant to copy somebody else because the person that is creating that content has no idea who you are, what illnesses you may have, what problems you may have. That's why. I hope that answers your question. Um,
Yes, yes. Gotham says yes, you did.
that's it.
Then we have uh, sometimes routines don't work, sometimes due to challenges faced during the work. I usually go to the gym after work. I feel less energetic due to the tedious work and deadlines and can't go to the gym. But sometimes gym makes the person more confident and able to solve challenges. How do you cope up with less energy? Once your mood is off, I don't feel uh, good in the gym, is what this person says. Yeah.
Um, so when it comes to doing this, like I said, right, the 70-30 ratio, it's okay if you're able to go to the gym only 4 times a week. It's okay if you're even able to go 3 times a week because if you don't feel energized and if you don't want to do it, going to the gym is just going to add on to your problems. So giving yourself some space to not be able to do, not doing anything is a way to take off that pressure. If you keep thinking to yourself, I have to go 6 days a week. So even when you're tired, you will not be able to go. Once you remove that added pressure by yourself that, okay, it's okay if I don't go 6 days, and you just end up going for 3 days a week, eventually your own habit will improve because then going to the gym and exercising leads to more dopamine, leads to you being happier and you're feeling better. So try practicing this. Try giving yourself more leeway on, okay, I will only go to the gym if I feel like it, maximum 3 days a week. And you will find that once you take that pressure off, you're able to do more and more things every day. I've opened the chat. Yeah.
Do you see one from Sujauddin, where he says he works for an BPO night shift and have to travel for 4 hours daily, and other time
Hmm.
at home, the leftover time goes home and sleeping. Therefore, I'm not able to
Hmm.
do things. What can I do?
One, again, a lot of respect for you for traveling 4 hours. That sounds very tough. And it already sounds like you are in a situation where you might be getting tired a lot more often. One thing that I say when you talk about not being able to do other things is you don't have to spend an hour doing something. You start with 10 minutes. I understand that it must be supremely tiring to travel for 4 hours a day, especially with the weather changing so often. If you are able to find time in your schedule, okay, maybe if you don't work the weekends, giving yourself a little bit of leeway, okay, I will sleep a little bit more, and then I will do some other tasks. I will not think about jobs, or I will just give myself this entire day to relax. That is a way that you can start. Start with whatever activity you want for 5 minutes. If you're not able to do half an hour of yoga, 5 minutes of meditation is a good place to start because you're at least giving yourself some energy to do something. Okay, I've read this one. How much sleep really required for a working woman? So again, sleep is very subjective. I know some people who really thrive on 3 hours of sleep, and I personally am the kind of person that requires her 8 hours. When it comes to how much time you require to go to sleep, it's always better to aim for 6 to 7, because again, I do not know what kind of job you do, what kind of life you may be living. So 7 hours is a good thing to aim for. Are there any other question? Okay.
Yeah, there's one last. I go to bed and try to sleep at 10, but not
Mm-hmm.
getting sleep, and I start using my mobile, and I get only 5 to 6 hours of sleep, and I feel really tired
Hmm.
in the daytime. How can I do it
Hmm.
and plan to do it?
Okay. So the mobile part is something even I do. I will not lie. I love sleeping on my phone. I'm sleeping on my bed and just scrolling on my phone. But what I realized is that I what happens is when you start looking at your phone and you start having the blue light on your face, it interrupts your sleep cycle. Instead of that, what I would do is I have this setting. Now it's on Android. It's something called Do Not Disturb, which instantly activates at 9:30. So my apps get grayed out. I cannot access those applications anymore. And the only thing I have allowed on my phone is my reading app and this Candy Crush sort of game that I like to play. So what I do is if I only have these two options available, I will play the game or read a chapter. And eventually I will just fall asleep because I don't have options anymore. This entire endless amount of options that we have is what causes us to keep being awake. So try putting some blockers on your phone, because instantly stopping and going cold turkey is as it's called. If you just stop using your phone, you will not sleep. But try shifting what you do. Maybe try reading. Maybe try playing one game that is very calming, like a puzzle game. So it can help you increase your quality of sleep. Anything else? I hope that answers your question, Nesam.
Did you answer this one? There's one more. So I'm working in a digital marketing agency, but don't feel like
Hmm.
work. I get a lot of
Hmm.
anxiety by going to office. What do I
Hmm.
do?
Oh, I see. What is it that makes you feel like makes you not want to go to work? So understanding why the anxiety happens.
Yeah.
Sometimes having this list, writing it down, because a lot of times when we keep being anxious in the same roundabout way, it gets too overwhelming for you. Write down, understand, or talk to somebody on what are the aspects that you don't like about your job. when it comes to that, now seeing what other options you may have available, I understand the job market is pretty tough, but looking at it from a different perspective, that okay, I don't like these certain aspects. Maybe you don't like the quality of work, or maybe you don't like certain different parts about your job. Breaking it down helps you be more realistic. Okay, I can't change this, but I can tolerate it. Hence, I will go ahead, change my perspective on how I'm looking at it. Again, I do not have enough context, so I don't think I'll be able to help you a lot, but I hope that writing things down is always a great way to understand and evaluate why something may be happening. Is there anything else?
I see a lot of thank yous, but yeah, no questions now. Okay, yeah, there is
See.
one just came.
Mm-hmm.
What
Mm-hmm.
is opinion if a person A is disciplined, optimistic in his own life, less talkative, does not share his
Mm-hmm.
success with others, and then there's a
Mm-hmm.
person B who's very active with the outside world, shares happiness with
Mm-hmm.
others. I've heard that
Mm-hmm.
speaking less leads to less stress. Is that true? What's your opinion on it, basically?
If speaking less led to less stress, I would be very stressed. I love speaking. I love talking to people. But honestly, I have heard this too. In my family would tell me this, oh, keep things to yourself, do not share it with other people. It all depends on what your viewpoint is. You can talk a lot, you can tell the people closest to you what you are planning to do. But it I also believe in something called picking your own battles. That is, if you don't feel like sharing something with other people, you are not obligated to talk at all. You can live your own life. You can you can control how much you want to share with other people. Because this entire thing of speak less words will have less stress is not true. I mean, somebody who's super quiet can also be incredibly stressed. So there is no correlation when it comes to that. But it also depends on you. If you don't feel like talking about your work or what your aims in life are, no one can force you. That is entirely on you. I hope that answers your question.
Yes, Amir says yes. Okay, we have another one. How to deal with guilt of not performing, and due to this guilt, we again are not able to perform, and the guilt builds up.
Guilt is something that I understand. I also feel very guilty when I'm not able to do a task. But when you are not able to do something, look around from a different perspective. What is it that not what is it that stopped me from completing something? Was it because I was not in didn't have the enough energy for it? I didn't have enough time for something. I didn't have the resources to complete a task. I'll give you an example. Now, when it comes to making a workshop script, if my deadline is Tuesday, but I end up finishing the task on Thursday, I feel really guilty. But maybe on Tuesday, I was sick. I didn't have enough time. I maybe had another session, or maybe I live with my parents. So my parents were sick. So in that way, combating your guilt with, okay, I understand I'm guilty, but I also had a reason for not doing something. That is part of the self-compassion. That giving yourself this space that, all right, I didn't do something, but that doesn't mean I wasn't doing anything at all. It just means that just because I wasn't able to complete my task on Tuesday doesn't mean I didn't finish it at all, right? I did it. I finished it on Thursday. That is a great way to deal with your guilt. That, okay, I am guilty about not finishing something, but that doesn't mean I did not have enough on my plate. So I'm allowed to fail. I'm allowed to not do something. I hope that helps you. Um, yeah. Are there any other questions? Anything else?
Yeah, I can see one. Hello, I'm interested to connect on how to develop curriculum for caregivers for mentally and physically handicapped children.
Mhm,
Is it the right forum?
mhm.
I think he's asking for a contact. Maybe you can help if you.
Yes. I'll do one thing. I'll just write the email ID down in the chat, or should I share?
Yeah, that will help.
Um, I'll just write my contact details out.
Yes,
You
please.
can go ahead and you can email me at any point. Also, if you would be interested, our website is called breakthroughcounselling.com.in. You can always check us out. Yeah. Is there anything else?
Um, okay. Yes, thank you so much, Amatullah. I think this brings us to the end, and thanks also for sharing. Guys, you can always reach out to Amatullah. You can write to her. I've also put the link to the website. You can always visit the website and just keep connected with the hosts of the session today. Yeah, thank you so much, and we keep planning to do sessions like this twice a month. We also put the recordings up on our YouTube, which is Past Care. So yeah, keep following us, and thanks again everyone for taking out the time and attending the session. And thank you so much, Amatullah. I hope you had a good time. We actually did, and thanks for staying back and answering all the questions. So and see you next time.
Thank you.